Good morning, stampers and crafters. Welcome to Tina's Crafty Ink Spot. I'm Tina. I'm a Stampin' Up! Independent demonstrator. And today I'm bringing to you a fun spring card. This card is part of my Team Stamp It blog hop. So make sure you follow the links below and check out all the neat projects that the members have brought to you. You can go from blog to blog. That's why they call it a blog hop. And if you leave a comment, hashtag Stamp It Contest, on each one of the blogs, you'll be eligible to win a prize. The drawing will be next month. All of the details and how to enter, and it's free, are down below. So make sure you do the hop. Check out everybody's great projects. Today for spring, I decided, obviously, to go with a really cute little bunny in an Easter basket. And when I stamped this basket, it made me think of the lattice edge technique. So we're going to learn that today. Some people call it a basket weave edge. I just call it kind of a lattice card edge. It's really cute, and it's a lot easier than you think. So on today's class, I will also put together a step-by-step PDF tutorial for you. I'm also going to include the template you need to create the lattice. Now the PDF template is going to have 6 templates for you, so you can make 6 separate lattice cards. You can reuse the templates, but I did find it's a little easier to just use a fresh one each time. Print them out and we'll cut them out. So let's start by doing that first. So all you're going to do is cut out your template. And now, this side doesn't matter as much, but this side, you want to try to trim it right on the edge of the line there, because that's the edge that's going to go against the fold of your card. So let's go ahead and get that on there. And then right at the end of it here, let's trim that straight across, and the same up here at the top. Now I'm going to trim a little bit of this off because I don't need all that. This side doesn't have to be straight. It doesn't matter. So now we've got our template ready. And for this card, I'm going to use Blushing Bride because I think pink is a really cute spring color. So what I have is a basic card base, which is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Okay. So what we want to do is we're going to fold that. And now I'd use a bone folder here. You kind of want to get in the habit of using your bone folder anyway. Nice crisp folds are nice. So we've got that nice crisp fold there. Okay. Now we're going to take our template. We're going to put it right on the edge of the fold. Okay. It's going to line up right on the edge. Put it. And then to hold it in place, just take a couple of paper clips and clip it, put them in an angle there so they're not in the way of your cuts, and you're clipping the whole card. Okay, make sure your edge is straight on there. We're going to take our other paper clip, hold it into place, and there you go. Now these lines that are on here are 2 different lengths, okay? And that'll make sense to you as we go. So all you're going to do is take a nice pair of sharp snips and you're going to cut right on the line the length of the line. Okay, I'm just going to do that all the way up. And I'm kind of holding my paper in place. I don't want it to move. The paper clips are holding it in place real well, but just so it doesn't shift. And that'll keep your lattice even. This is a really fun technique. I haven't done it in a long time, so I thought it was a good time to make a video on it. And there you go. And now we're going to remove our paper clips. And you're going to have something that looks like this. Okay? See it there? And now, what we're going to do is we're going to take, let me go from, let's see, which way am I going here? Okay, so now turn it to where your arrows are pointing toward the top, okay? Take this the very first cut triangle and fold it straight down. Use your bone folder. And now you're going to take, just on this first one, is the only one you're going to do this on, you're going to snip it straight across. Okay, now don't lose this piece, we need it. So set it there. I kind of got a rough edge there, I'm going to trim it a little. Okay, so now you skip a triangle to the next one and do the same thing. You fold it down, but then you kind of tuck it under that triangle right there. Okay? See? And then you skip one, fold it, tuck it under the triangle, and you're going to do that all the way up. And now you see you have a blank spot there, and that's where our extra piece comes in. Oops, I tucked that one under there. And now you're going to take the piece that you cut off, and you can use glue dots or really good adhesive here on the tips. I'm just going to use some glue and just put a little bit right on the edges there. And then I'm going to tuck it under my V there. And glue it straight to the edge of the card there. Okay? So it's right here. And that just completes your lattice. Okay? Now take your bone folder and go over those folds real well. And that is your whole lattice fold. Okay? Now now you can do it either way. You can fold it this way to where your lattice folds are kind of showing. So or you can do it this way. Okay, I'm going to do it where my lattice folds are showing so that it looks more like a basket. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish everything real well. And there is the whole lattice edge. How simple is that? Isn't that fun? Okay, so we're going to set this aside. And now, for our image piece, I took our second largest rectangle stitch die, and I cut out a piece of basic white, okay? And then I'm going to cut out, see how it's a little bit, oh, I did cut the wrong one though. So actually it should be the largest one. Oh, I was going to do a mat, and I changed my mind. So let me go cut. So you're going to take and cut your largest rectangle stitch die. Let me go cut that real quick. So now, this largest stitched rectangle is a little too wide. I'll show you here in a second. So if we were to use the full piece, it would overlap our lattice. So I took a ruler and I measured, because we've got about an 1/8 inch of a gap, top and bottom. So you want to give an 1/8 inch of a gap between your lattice and there. And that comes to about 3 1/8. Okay? So I'm going to cut off the side that's closest to the lattice so that I still have a nice stitch design. If you don't want to use the stitched rectangles, you can simply cut a 3 1/8 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white. That's up to you. I just thought the little bit of stitched edge would give it a little bit of character. So all I'm going to do is bring in my trimmer, and I'm going to cut off, make sure I'm cutting on the right side here. Okay, so I want it to be 3 1/8. And then when you turn it with your stitched edges there, then it gives you a mat. See there? And that's going to be our image piece. So now for our image, I decided to obviously use the Springtime Joy. The lamb is adorable. I'm going to do a tutorial on how to make a furry lamb for you. So stay tuned for that coming out, if I don't get it done before this blog hop. We're going to use this adorable little rabbit and the basket. And I'm going to show you some masking techniques, okay, so that you can make it look like the basket's behind your bunny and the flowers a little bit behind the basket there. And we'll do a little bit of Stampin' Blends and sponging here just to make that bunny hop, you know, pop off the card for you. So we're going to take out our stamps. So we need our bunny, we need the basket, and we need our little tulip. And we'll do the greeting last, because that's going to depend on where our image ends up on our sheet. So I'm going to bring in the old trusty Stamparatus. And the first thing you want to do is you want to take these images, because we need to create a mask, and I'm just going to use my block for this. Why my block's dirty? Oh, don't judge. Been there. You know you have. You've been there. Time to wash the blocks. So what I'm going to do is take my Memento ink, and I have masking paper here. And I'm going to stamp one of each of the images and then fussy cut them. If you do not have masking paper, you can use a Post-it note. You could use plain cardstock and even put a little bit of temporary adhesive on the back to hold it in place. But I'm going to show you what I use for masking paper. I use, it's by Avery, and it's removable ID labels. Okay, so you're going to get this whole 25 sheets of 8.5 by 11. So imagine how long that's going to last you. And they are removable adhesive sheets. Okay, as you see on the back, it's just got the removable backing. They peel right up. They go down easy. They hold solid. I will put a link to, I believe I got these on Amazon, and they're cheap. So they're going to last you for a long time. You can use them in your printer. You can use them for all kinds of things. But I'll put a link to those. So, moving forward, I stamped those, and then I fussy cut them. I was going to save you the grueling of me trying to fussy cut 1.5 handed. Now, on the basket, I did take my craft knife, and I cut out where behind the eggs and the basket top, so that when I'm sponging, there'll be background back there. If you don't want to cut that out, that is fine. You can always, after you're done sponging, come back in with a coordinating color of a blend and fill in that little tiny spot of background. This was just as easy for me to take my craft knife, cut it out, and then we have a full mask. Okay, it's going to be tender there because that's real thin, but that's just an option. You don't have to try to fussy cut that if you don't want to. So we got our 2 little masks there. And now we're going to lay out our card. So we're going to bring our image piece in. I always kind of like to line up on one of the grid lines in case something moves. I know I was on a grid line, but if you use your magnets, you should be okay. So now, I want my bunny to be forward. So if my bunny's forward, he's going to be the first stamp I stamp. Okay, so let's bring him in. Make sure I've got the ink off him. And let's line him up. I want to have a little grass below him. So I'm going to line him up about there. Okay. So we want room for our basket. And we also want room for our little tulip. Okay. It's going to be a little close, but that's okay because we're going to overlap these. Alright, so let's put our bunny there. Now I'm just going to stamp in Memento Black, and the reason I'm using that is because we're going to be using alcohol blends, and this will not bleed. Now you can use StazOn, but make sure if you use StazOn with alcohol markers, it's very, very dry, because it will bleed with the alcohol. So just as a go-to, my basic black in my craft room is my Memento Black. Okay, let's do him just a little bit darker. Her. Let's call her a her. Oops. Okay, I just dropped my ink into my lap. I know. At least I didn't drop the ink pad upside down on my project. Been there, done that. Now we got a nice solid image of her. Alrighty, let's move her aside. And now I'm going to take my bunny mask, peel off the backing of your... See, stuff just comes off real easy. Let's mask her. Now a tip when you're trimming things for masking, you can trim right on the lines, especially if you're going to be sponging, because of the minor ridge that's on any mask, your post-it notes or anything. When you're sponging or anything like that, it might leave just a little bit of a gap. So if you just cut your mask right on the line, you should be good. So now I want the basket to kind of be behind her. So I'm going to overlap her. I'm pretty much going to kind of put it level with her. She's just barely standing in front of it. Stamp that. And like I said, there's going to be a little ledge when you're stamping or coloring and there's a mask there. So you just need to press down real well at the edge. And that'll ensure that the ink goes right up against that mask. Okay, so we've got our basket. Looks a little funny right now, but the bunny's mask, so that's okay. So now we want our little tulip here, but I want one of the leaves right behind that basket. So I'm going to bring in my basket mask. And we're going to leave these masks on because we're going to do some sponging. So let's put our mask on here. And looky there. Now let's put our little tulip here. I got one leaf just slightly behind the basket. And there we go. Now you can cut another mask for your tulip for sponging if you want to. Or you can do like I did, and the colors on my tulip are dark enough to cover any type of sponging that I've done. So I'm not going to worry about cutting that little tiny tulip mask. So let me set these aside. Matter of fact, we're going to put them right back in the case so we don't have runaway stamps. Okay, let's do some sponging and coloring. Now, let's start with Bermuda Bay. I want, with the masking behind her, it'll make her pop. And we have a little bit of Old Olive for the grass. So I'm going to start with the Bermuda Bay. I'm going to bring in one of my awesome blending brushes. These Stampin' Up, they're soft, they blend so easy. Now my blending brushes, because I have probably a dozen of them I bought, is I separate them into colors and mark them. They do dry and no ink will come off, and you can use them for mixed colors, but I think just kind of keeping like all my blues family in one and my greens family, that's just kind of my little thing. So let's ink up our blending brush. And now we always want to start either off, or we can start where the mask is. And I'm just going to lightly put that on there and blend it outward. And we want it kind of dark around her. Let me bring this in. This is just my silicone mat so I don't get ink on my tabletop. Now it's okay if you go a little below her, because when we put the green there, right below her, it'll add a nice little darker shadow, which will give you kind of a cast shadow of the images. So I'm trying to concentrate a little darker right around the images themselves. Then blend it out a little. Now you can ink up a lot and do a real dark blend right off the bat, but I kind of like to build up my colors. So I'm just tapping real lightly a couple of times and then start light, and you can always push a little harder to blend farther up. Okay. Let's go just a little ways up. So I'm kind of giving her a little more dark right closest to her and closest to the middle of the basket there, and then fading it upward. The darker shadow around the image itself is going to be what makes it look more 3D. I think that's pretty good right there. Make sure it's blended real well. Alright, let's bring in our green. This is our Old Olive. And now what I want to do is I'm going to take a mask. And all I need for that is just a regular sticky note. And I'm going to mask right on the edge of her feet down here in the basket, just below the basket. And remember, you want to be right, kind of right on the line. Remember how I told you that it'll leave a little bit of a gap when you're sponging. So there you go. Let's bring in our green brush, and we're just going to add a little bit of green right down here. Like I said, because the blue is there, it's actually going to darken the green area and give it a cast shadow appearance. So start on your mask and then work downward. So it's going to be darkest at the base of the image there, right on the edge of your mask, and then fade out lighter. That should about do it. See there, when you take off your mask, now you have a little horizon there. And now, if you notice, I've got a tiny little gap where my tulip is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the coordinating blend, which is the light Old Olive. And I'm just going to go right along, take my feather tip, go right along the images there, and it's just going to give you the heightened cast shadow. Okay? And it also covers in your blank there. So we want a little bit more shadow there. A little shadow around the basket. Come across to our tulip, and there we go. So that is where you would also color in your Bermuda Bay around the basket there if you didn't fussy cut it. So now when we pop these off, it sticks well. It's okay. It might rip, but it means it didn't move around when you were rubbing on it and sponging. Look how that just makes her pop. And look at that. Just makes her pop. See where I have a tiny little bit of white right along the edge there where I told you a mask can leave a little white line? You're going to do the same thing with your, hopefully it's my light Bermuda Bay. Oh, that's shaded spruce. Oh, I should have my Bermuda Bay markers over here. What did I do with them? Let me grab them real quick. Okay. I must have them in the other room, so that's okay. You would just touch up the same as you did with the grass. Let's do a little coloring. Now we're going to be using our Stampin' Blends. Now, a lot of people tell you that you should lay your, whatever you're coloring with Stampin' Blends on a piece of paper to catch the bleeding. That's kind of a false recommendation, in my opinion. Okay, don't want to offend anybody. If you put your image on a hard surface, like the foam mat or glass mat or something like that, blends, alcohol markers, all alcohol markers, are made to be to where the wetter they are, the better they blend. So if you have a hard surface that the ink's not going to absorb into, you're going to get better blend quality on your image. Does that make sense? Because it's not drawing the wet out of your image while you're coloring. Now this is a really small image, so it may not make a lot of difference. But when you're doing larger alcohol marker images, you want your paper to stay wet. You want your colors to stay wet because as you color, they're going to blend better. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please, feel free to ask me. Now, that is just my opinion. Okay, there's other people that say it doesn't matter, whatever. I'm just saying, I find that if you color and the longer and the wetter your paper stays, the better your colors will blend, which is what you want to do with alcohol markers. So anyway, there you go. Tip number 120, I guess. Okay, now we're going to take some light smoky slate, and I'm going to use the bullet tip on this because it's going to be a small image. And what I want to do is I want our bunny to be white, but I want her to have some cast shadows to give her more dimension. So what I want to do is these flowers on her head are popping up. So we're going to go right along the edge, just a real light little line along those flowers. And that's going to give them just a little bit of dimension. And her little feet, maybe right here under her chin. Maybe a little shadow right there. It doesn't take much. You only need a tiny little bit, and it's going to just kind of give the illusion of 3D. Okay. Now, personally, okay, this looks fine. See how it kind of makes the flowers pop? Personally, what I do is I take my lifter pen and I lightly just one swipe right over those exact lines. Okay? That's all I'm doing. I'm just doing one little swipe right over it. And all it's going to do is kind of bleed it out. Because remember I told you, if it's wet, it's going to spread. Okay? So you'll see as that dries, that gray is going to be a little bit darker, close to the flowers, but it's also going to bleed out a little bit and give it a shadow. Okay? That's just a trick I use. You don't have to do it. Okay, let's color our basket. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit for you for the coloring. Hopefully that worked. We'll try that. Okay, let's move some stuff out of the way. Now I need a couple colors here for my basket. And what I have is I have the dark crumb cake. I have the light soft suede and the dark soft suede. Okay, I am a dark to light person, so I'm going to take my bullet tip, because this is a small image, and I'm going to hit some of these shadow lines. So if your basket's twisting right there at that little line, then we want to give it a shadow right there. Okay, we're just going to do a couple of little lines. Now on such a small image, this doesn't always matter, but it's kind of a little bit of attention to detail, because if you look closely at the image, you'll see that it does make a difference. Now remember, our little girl is in front of the basket, so I'm going to go right along that edge, just a thin little line right there. Okay, and we're going to do the same little swirls right along the edges there. Okay, now we've got the weave of the basket. Now if you follow the guidelines of the stamp itself, you will do shading perfectly. So I'm going to go right on the edges. Now it's a small image, so you kind of only need to just like touch your marker to it, and it's going to give you plenty of shade. Oops. So see how all I did is go on each side there. Okay. Now we'll take our second darkest, our second lightest, which is going to be your light soft suede. And all you're going to do is go right over those and come out just a smudge. So you're going right over them, and all that's doing is bleeding it out. So you're just going right over the same lines. And you're starting to get dimension to your basket now, because each of the little weaves are curved. Okay, so the light is going to be hitting the edge that's closest to the light. So we went right along the edges there. Oh, I got my handles. So see how it's coming together there and giving it dimension? Now you're just going to take your light crumb cake. Oh no, it's your dark crumb cake. Apologies, because that's the next one up. And then you're just going to do the same thing. I think I need my light crumb cake though. That might be. So corrected. Light crumb cake. Don't use your dark. Oops. And now we're going to go right over those same lines and bring it out even more. And that's going to be your lightest part of the baskets. Okay? And by going right over the same lines, you're bleeding the colors out. These small images, even though they're small and you could probably just color them straight away, it really does add a lot of extra dimension. See what I mean? Doesn't that basket just kind of pop? Can you remember we colored over our tulip? Not a problem. Let's bring in some Poppy Parade. And again, our darkest cast shadow area first, which is going to be behind those petals. And maybe you have a little bit of cast shadow just on the edge. Okay? And now you'll bring in your light and you'll blend those out. Go all the way into what you just colored and it'll bleed it out. Okay, I wanted some bright leaves here, so let's do some shaded spruce. Again, our leaf overlaps right here. We have a crease right there, so we're just going to follow what the artist did with the stamp. Just follow those lines with your darkest. Then bring in your lightest and go right over it. Now if you want to add just a little bit of accent to this, take your highlighter and just touch right at the edge of those tulip ends. Just touch your pen to it and pick it up and walk away. And you'll notice when that dries, there's going to be a little tiny light tips on the ends that it's going to make it look like the sun's hitting it. Okay, let's get some colorful flowers in here. So we're going to bring in some assorted. I will put all of the colors that we use below for you. This one here is Highland Heather. And remember our cast shadow. So if this flower is in the front, that means right behind there is our cast shadow. Okay? Where it's overlapping, and it's going to make it look like it's popping up. So we're going to put our little cast shadow there, and then take our light and color the rest of it in. And let's make that first flower orange. So since that one's just kind of popped up, let's just add a couple little dark highlights there. When you do the light and dark, it just adds dimension to your images. We'll blend it out with our lighter. Let's see, what color do we want? Let's do some, what is this one? We got some Mango Melody here. Let's do that one. Now our shadow's on the other side. Remember, our orange flower is tallest. So our cast shadow is going to be right next to that. Color it in. Let's see, do we have any pinks in here? We got some pinks. Let's see what we got. Oh, Flirty Flamingo. Okay, now this flower is behind that one. So our shadow is going to go right next to that. And then color in the balance. So even though that is a tiny, tiny little image, you can still notice how the flowers pop if you add just tiny little shadows there for you. I think I'm having trouble getting my camera to focus there for you. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. So let's add some leaves, and I think I'm just going to stick with, you know what, no, let's go with Old Olive. I think I want these on her hat to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take my darkest, and I'm just going to, you only need to touch your tip, and all we're trying to do is get our two colors in there. And then touch it again to fill them in. And you are done. Oh, you know what? We forgot the eggs. Oh my goodness. Alright, let's start with an orange egg. And we're going to do the same thing here. Okay? Pick which egg you want in front, which is this one. And we're going to add a little bit of shadow next to it. And there might be a little bit of shadow where it's behind the basket there. And then we'll bring in the light. Color the whole thing right over your dark. And we need a yellow egg, so let's do the same. Let's do our yellow as the front one. Now the shadow on this one is going to be right at the basket line, because the basket's shadowing it. Now you can always go over the images one more time with your markers if you want to, because all that's going to do is deepen the effect. Let's add a purple egg here. So we've got the shadow of that egg, and we've got the shadow of the basket. Okay. I'll do some close-up images and have them below for you. And we got one egg left back there. Well, let's make it pink. There's my pinks. And it's kind of got a lot of shadow because it's way behind everybody back there. And there we go. So now we need to add our sentiment and our little butterfly. And I could probably do that with a block, but I'm probably not going to, because I hate getting all this way, and then if I stamp it wrong or too light, then it upsets me. You know you've been there. Get all the way to the end, stamp something wrong, or stamp the inside wrong. So that's why I always stamp my inside before I attach it also. So let's find our stamp set. I'm going to grab the little butterfly and our welcome spring. So I'm going to do this a little off to the side here, and kind of going in the middle, I guess. And we want our little butterfly up above it. I was using gilding flakes the other day, so I have little tiny gold gilding flakes everywhere throughout my craft room right now. If you haven't done the gilding flakes, they're a blast. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see I've done some gilding flake tutorials. Let's just stamp that right in there. See now how that's not real nice and crisp and dark? I can re-stamp it. Stamparatus saves the day. Alrighty then. Now, we are going to just add some quick color to the butterfly and a couple embellishments. You have a fun completed card. Okay. So I think I want to do my butterfly in orange and yellow. So I'm going to take my dark, and I'm just going to add some dark orange there. And now you can use colors that aren't the same and blend them together also, which you'll see I do a lot of. It's not going to hurt your markers to go into another color. Okay? So just go right over the edge of that, and it's kind of going to create that third color for you. Okay? Got our little butterfly, and let's see if we want to add just a little bit of Winka Stella to our butterfly here. You can even do it right in the center of the flowers there. Just kind of give yourself a little bit of bling bling. You know your cards have got to have a bling bling. Now, I'm going to attach this with dimensionals, just to add texture to it. Okay, you know my saying, don't skimp on your dimensionals. They're cheap. And you don't want your cards to collapse in the mail. Nothing worse, you go to somebody's house and you've sent them a really nice card you worked hard at, and it was all crushed and collapsed. But I did find, I don't know, you guys probably all know, you can actually buy stamps that, postage stamps. They're a little bit more, but they're, I think they're called hand cancel or non-machinable, and it's a special little stamp. I think the post office has them now, and it's a little butterfly. And if you use those stamps on your cards, they won't run your cards through a machine to sort it, so it kind of saves your cards. Okay, I got all those off. Okay, let's line this up. We want to leave an even gap. Alright, let's add some bling bling. Okay, we got our bling. I need my take your pick tool. I kind of liked, I'm at a loss for the name of these right now, but these embellishments are so pretty. They've got like kaleidoscope colors in them, and I thought them to be perfect for this card. So let's take a big one here, and we'll put it about right there. Maybe take a little one. Did I get it? No. Let's put it about right there. Maybe one more little one. Let's put it over here. Just a little something, something. Now, I did a ribbon on mine, and I'm going to show you another trick. Bring in your rubber mat, and I have the metallic edge ribbon, which is white, and I buy this because I can make any color ribbon I want. I love this. Now, you can do this with markers, or you can do it with the Stampin' Blends. I wanted a pink ribbon to go on here, so I'm just going to take my Flirty Flamingo, because I want it kind of a deep pink. Take your brush tip edge. And the reason I like using alcohol markers for this is because it will dry right away. Now see, that's a little dark. Okay? So I think what I want to do is I'm going to change the pink. You can use the exact color of your cardstock, which I think is Blushing Bride. That's Flirting Flamingo. I know I have Blushing Bride out. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's grab one of our pinks here. Guess I should have pulled one out before I... There we go. we're just going to color the ribbon. It dries really fast. And it's great because you can make any color ribbon you want. See there? You now have colored ribbon that coordinates with your card. So what I'm going to do, it only takes it a second to dry. Now if you use markers, your regular Stampin' Write markers, give it time to dry, because if you don't, it will transfer on here. So this is dry. Okay, and with the alcohol markers, it automatically kind of colors both sides. So I'm going to open my card, and I'm going to go maybe just a couple up here. My ribbon's a little longer than I needed, but I can use it for my next card. And pull it through there. Then I'm just going to tie it in a knot. I'm going to do a square knot so that it'll stay on there. Okay, and then we're just going to take our snips, cut it at an angle. And there you go, you got a little matching ribbon. And now your inside greeting, I won't bore you through that. All I did is did our greeting, and I stamped a couple of the little flowers here that are in here. And make sure that if you're going to color these flowers with your alcohol markers, color them before you attach them to this card base. Because remember, your colors can bleed through because of the alcohol marker. So just pick a couple of colors there, and you have your card. You have this fun little basket weave lattice card. I hope you enjoyed today's card and technique. I will have templates and tutorials for you down below. Make sure you do the blog hop. You can enter to win a free prize. You'll see what it is below, and they're usually great prizes and card kits. So be sure to enter and leave a comment and check out all the wonderful projects our team has put together for you. And I hope you have a happy Stampin' Day. Bye-bye now.